right, welcome to Yada Yada Boom. Robert and I were talking just the other day about what our exercise and life routines looked like, and we felt it a good idea to have a little conversation about this. So, Robert, tell me a little bit about what you've been experiencing recently, because we can give like a quick synopsis of backstory if people don't remember. But then tell me what's going on now.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to nail exactly what we were talking about just a few days ago, but let me just describe my exercise routine. For me, I've I've made exercise a part of my life, my being. It's a pretty high priority, and a part of that is for health. But I joke, and it's not necessarily just a joke. I'm not sure I'd exercise as much, or sometimes at all, if I wasn't able to measure it, have goals, and work toward those goals. So that can be, in today's lexicon, that can be a number of miles per year on my bike. I said I'm 2,500 for this year, and I'm not even looking like I'm going to be above 1,600. Contrasted at 8,700 during my peak in COVID. So that's hard for me. Feel like I'm failing. I feel like I'm not reaching the goals that I've set. I set climbing goals too, number of feet climbed per year, but mostly I'm mileage. I also set a time, and not necessarily time, a miles per hour. So could I survive without my cycling computer? When I was a kid, we didn't have such a thing, but now we have these computers that do all kinds of things, including navigate you. Same way, if I was running, could I survive without a watch and some way of knowing the distance that I ran? I don't know that it would have been as motivating. So I stopped going to the gym for various reasons, mostly because I get a pretty good workout doing push-ups, but every time I do a set, it is in Excel, it is graphed, it is charted, it is days of the month times the number of push-ups done, or time actually divided by, and then times the number of days in the month total. So I can look at my projection. I rank them. I see this is my second best month of this year. It's going to be my first. It's going to be my maybe 14th best since I started doing push-ups.
Okay.
There you
So you
go.
have all
That's
of these
that's me.
little goals and whatever. What do you think, or why do you think you are motivated, or what is the motivation behind the high amount of miles or the amount of miles per hour on the bicycle or that data? What do you think is what's going on in the back of your head, and why do you have to beat those numbers?
Yeah, it's, if it can be measured, it can be improved.
Mm,
So you can't improve, you can't challenge your discomfort to improve yourself athletically until you are measuring and improving. I mean, how will you know? You can say, oh, my chest hurts. I probably did too many push-ups. How many did you do? I don't know. Maybe too many. I have to know.
okay.
So
No,
it's
I
kind of
find
like
it
a
very
sickness.
interesting.
It's almost like a
It
sickness sometimes, because I can literally get
could be.
depressed because I'm not doing I'm not reaching my goal. I didn't get enough miles in this week. And when I was setting big mileage goals, which was around 175 a week during COVID on the cycle, um, I'd go out and get really junk miles. It's just get the miles. And what real
Hmm.
benefit is that? I mean, there was very
Ah,
little
yes.
cardio benefit. There was very little benefit other than I achieved this arbitrary, stupid ass goal I set for myself.
Okay. So this is what we started talking about this the other day. We stopped ourselves and said, wait, what a great topic to talk about.
Right.
When you look at the data driven and your thought process of, I can only get better if I push myself harder, do you see that there's going to be a point, or are you starting to recognize that there is a point where you can't really necessarily up the mileage or the miles per hour or whatever? Do you see that as maybe a stumbling point at some
Well, I think for sure I
circumstance?
know that my goals might shift. In other words, I might have weekly mileage goal, which translates into a monthly goal, which translates into a yearly goal. But at the same time, within that subset of mileage, I am, focused on reaching a certain miles per hour on distance rides, for instance. Like, for me, when I was a kid, a big thing was a century, 100 miles in 6 hours, which is a 16.67 mile per hour pace. Back then, you didn't have fancy things like cycling computers or even digital watches that were readily available. So, you kind of you started at X AM, and if you finished by X AM plus 6, it didn't matter how much time you stopped or there were traffic lights or flat tires. It was kind of a total time. Now with cycling computers, your actual time moving. It stops when you stop. So that was a big goal for me. And then later, a 5 hour century, 5 hours of actual pedaling time or actually in the saddle time. Those things then become primary to me. Like, can I get 20 miles an hour for an average ride, for a long ride? Can I get 10,000 feet of climbing in a single ride? Things like that. Yeah. So as I was mentioning, I have a number of secondary goals that will pop up, particularly if I'm well on pace to do my primary goal.
Okay. So, like, my question to you was, when you're looking at all of this data and when you're really challenging yourself and things like that, do you see an end to the challenge or the actual real shift of, let's just be real, we're not getting any younger. Time is, of the essence. And so you do work a lot, you do have
Yep.
other things in your life other than that. So, how can you see this shifting or even turning into more of, because like when we talk about your things that you have like on your LinkedIn page where one of them is athlete,
Right.
hands down, I know that you're an athlete, but is there a time where you're going to shift into more of a health motivated focus versus an athlete mode, let me beat my miles, my time, my miles per hour?
Yeah, it's what I'm struggling to do. I'm struggling to shift from that very data centric, uh, target goal driven mindset toward I want to be healthy. I want to be flexible. I want to be able to go to a park with my grandson and, be able to be on my feet and just be able to bend over, pick him up, play with him, run with him, not necessarily have any fitness goals beyond being flexible, able to balance as I get older, the things that
Yes.
older people struggle with. I absolutely have that in my mind, but the only way I generally know how to get there is to set these measure and improves. And one of the struggles I have, Kate, is I don't stretch enough. Biking and running, while I get some amount of movement, they're pretty limited in their movement set. So, if you're biking, your legs are rotating, you're holding on, you're turning a little, you're really not getting much movement. Your neck is down in this position on a road bike. So I know I'm not getting it, but I think because I struggle with, oh boy, I'm going to set this goal of like doing 20 minutes of stretches. It's like, that's boring. Who cares? I'm going to stretch
I
for
feel the
20
same
minutes and I'm going to set a
way.
goal of stretching for an hour a week. It just bores me. So I've got to come to a paradigm shift where it's more important because that is important to me.
Awesome. Well, something because I was very interested, like when you were saying, okay, I'm having a hard time getting to the gym, the motivation to go there is being difficult. I've morphed into because you do a lot of push-ups and you're finding your time is a little bit more crunched
Right.
currently in your life. So I thought it was wonderful that you're like, when I have the time, I go and I do little sets of push-ups, which
Right.
a lot of people don't do. They think that, oh, I have to have an hour set aside, or for
Right.
like for you for cycling, I have to have so many hours to do this one thing. And having that shift of mind into, okay, what can I do? My time is more limited. I don't have the I haven't made the time for some people, or literally your time is in these little blocks. You've done great with your time management. So recognizing that, okay, the order of importance for your life, these are the things here. So I don't have hours on end. And so you are putting in, okay, I go and I do 20 push-ups, 30 however many you do in a set.
Right.
And then you go back to work and then you're like, okay, I have a break. This is what I'm doing. Keeping your
Right.
body moving like that is a huge, huge, huge healthy thing. Still going to do amazing things for you. But rather than looking at athlete mode, which you've been
Right.
doing for a long time, it's like, how do I stay physically fit, move my body, keep my strength? Can you see that that is actually more of a motion based type of exercise for you?
I certainly can. And just the ability to shift from going to the gym and having an obsession with how many pounds of weight were moved into just number of push-ups is actually good for me because I'm not really spending any more time. A set of push-ups, it depends on what I'm doing, but it's generally going to be between 30 and 40. So it's going to take me about 30 to 40 seconds. And I'll do 7 to 9 sets of those through a day. And by the end, yeah, they're getting harder and harder to get to that last few. And I do them in, I do them out, I do them from the end of the bed. So it's, more up here. But again, I have to have knowledge of how many I've done at least. But it's not cause it doesn't require me to get in the car or get on my bike and go to the gym and
Right.
go hit the machines and wait for somebody else and move heavy weights for 8 to 10 reps and then wait and wait and wait between
Right.
sets. It's a lot more productive use of my time, and I found that I can achieve some of the goals. So I have made that shift where it's like, okay, I set a goal of 3.8 million pounds moved this year, and I've abandoned it. I've said it's not important. And
Very
even though
good.
you tell yourself it's important, it's not important. You're not going
It's
to get to
not.
the Olympics on this. The person who's done the most push-ups, I think there's somebody who's done like 8,000 push-ups consecutively or something. I
Oh my
mean,
gracious.
it sounds like a lot when I say I do 30 or 40 to some people. And there's people, that at the
Perspective.
top of the
Yeah.
game
There's
who could
people that
just,
do more.
yeah, that you can just keep
Of
going.
course.
So,
Well,
so
I
that,
think that it's,
yeah,
go ahead.
well, that's a shift for me, and it's a good use of my time because I'm still feeling like I'm getting the fitness part achieved, the health benefit of it. I have to start shifting into, maybe it could be yoga or I think the
Mobility
other,
and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
something else that causes me to I need that regiment to be able to say, okay,
Right.
I did 30 minutes of yoga or, um, what's the other one? Not,
Pilates or,
Pilates. Yeah,
mhm.
but Pilates I've heard is quite expensive. So
It's fun though. There's so many things. So like with my exercise journey's probably been much different from yours.
you're pretty aggressive in
Way
yours and you get splat points, right?
I do, but people really don't understand what all of that means. And then of course everybody's motivation is different. So the things that I do really do meet you where you are and you can stretch and you can, well, we're going to talk about stretching, but like stretch goals and things like that for yourself because of course you do want to not just stay stagnant in your
Right.
life. But my mind and my thought process has changed so drastically over the years. When I was younger, I was a swimmer and I danced. And then getting into the adulthood and being a mom and things like that, let's be real, there wasn't much going on as far as formal exercise, or if I was able to go, it was like the YMCA because you had childcare, for the infants, and then you'd go do the elliptical. You'd walk on the treadmill. And it really was just it was wonderful for me to get away from my children. I'm not going
Right.
to lie. Okay. I needed some mental space. And it's always good to move your body.
Yep.
Always good. So if you're starting at the very, very bottom, if you just go for a 20-minute walk, move your body. Okay.
Yeah.
It benefits you greatly, especially if it's outside. So I did those kinds of things. But after I lost the weight in 2016, we hit 2017. And that is when I did start I started actually doing Zumba because I love to dance.
Right.
And it was something that I felt that I could walk into and be able to learn quickly because it's just somebody leading you with movements and just getting my heart rate up was wonderful.
Right.
After I recognized that that was fun, I had people asking me to go to Orange Theory. If you have not heard about it, it's a great place. It's HIIT training, essentially. A lot of cardio heavy. And when I started in on doing that, it was okay. I had to walk on the treadmill. Um, Doing the weights on the floor, I of course couldn't do high amounts of weights. And when I
Right.
started to go faster on the treadmill or when I started to lift those heavier weights, I actually was hurting myself.
Yeah.
And so,
I'll interrupt and say it's part of the reason I don't mind not going to the gym, because I find that my tendency to want to do more, push more, I have come back with aches and pains, and sometimes they've stopped me from exercising.
yes. So that's when I very quickly recognized that I am not going to be the Olympic athlete that it's still something I deal with. But it is one of those things where I had a very quick shift of why am I here? What is important? Do I need to push myself like other people? Because it was all about how fast can you go on the treadmill? How fast can you run?
Right.
Or how much can you lift on the floor? Um, and my body just was not able to do what I saw other people doing. And that's where I had a realization of, wait a minute, it's not for me about how heavy can I lift. I do not want to deadlift hundreds and hundreds of pounds. That has no
Yeah.
impact on my life. Where when you think of people going to the gym, you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. What my shift and focus was is okay, I want to increase my basal metabolic rate.
Okay.
I would like to learn proper form so that I'm strengthening muscles inside my body that are going to be longevity muscles versus just having muscles.
Right.
And then I can challenge myself in certain ways as far as the cardio goes with things that work with my body type. So we're going to take long story longer. On the treadmill, I was a power walker. I can walk faster than some people can jog at a very high
Sure.
incline. Okay. Like I can literally walk at 6.5 miles an hour, trucking it at a really
Yeah.
high incline. That's for real. Okay. Over time, though, it really did start to hurt my body. That
Right.
pounding, even though they have, some bounce into them. And I did start to jog. By the second day of me jogging, I fractured part of my ankle. I'm
Oh,
just not built for it. I wanted to. I
yeah.
wanted to do what the other people were doing. But like I said, I kept hurting myself. And so over time, that has transformed into I no longer go on that treadmill ever.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
actually go on the bike and I can cycle my little pants off in that motion and I can adjust. Like for you, you're out on the road. For me, I can actually adjust the tension and the different ways that I hold my body. And for certain amount of times, I can raise my heart rate and really push myself, and then I can bring it back down and just keep the motion going for that cardio aspect. When I move into weightlifting and things like that, once again, I want to be, and I was like, oh, heavier, 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 because that's what everybody's mindset is. And then once again, I
Right.
quickly realized, wow, that doesn't work for me. It became what is proper form? How much tension can I put in my body in slow movement? Because that's harder than jerking a heavy weight, is
Yeah.
actually slow, controlled movements. Um, so after that little journey of learning that at Orange Theory, I did move into a place it's called the FIT. It's functional interval training. And we have lots of different classes there also. I like to be told what to do. I do not, I don't want to go to the gym and just go to this machine and wait and go to this machine and wait. I would like
Right.
to be told what to do and actually have it put together so it's functional for my
Right.
body. So things that I've worked on over the last couple of years there is I can sit down and stand up directly from the floor with no hands. I have an incredibly strong core, so I don't have back issues
Right.
really anymore. I am not there to lift this. I don't want to chest press 65 pounds aside.
Yeah.
I don't want that, but I can do 30, 35.
Right.
So I'm just increasing strength. I like definition of my muscles right now. You wouldn't be able to tell because, well, I haven't been able to move. That surgery and everything else,
Yeah.
it's very difficult. So I had to be very, very careful. Oh my God, this arm, Robert, I'm just going to side note. I'm looking at it today when I was doing something like there is nothing left there. It is
Wow.
just flopping in the breeze. Soon, I'm going to be able to build that back and I can really work on, okay, it's going to start with a 2 and 3 pound weight, but it's going to be slow,
And
controlled.
that's a really important takeaway, because you weren't an advanced athlete of any sort,
No.
exercise person. I mean, you said you did dance and swim, but for many years you weren't doing any of that.
Correct.
I have been doing, I took to biking at a really young age because I think because my parents, who were both pretty heavy, they would take me out cycling when I was maybe 12 years old. We'd go as a family, and I was so much faster than them. I'd get up to the top of the hill and wait for them. And I just thought I was great at it because compared to whom I was riding with, I was faster and better. So I had this natural confidence. I would turn out to be a better runner than I am a biker. Bikers tend to have these really, really big quads and power, and I don't have that kind of power. And I was actually a better runner, more of an endurance runner. So, uh, but we all started somewhere, and there's
Right.
people listening to this, and I know there's a fellow that I went to high school with. It's a really great guy, Facebook friend that has been challenging himself, and he said to me before that I'm part of his motivation.
Awesome.
It's easy to get intimidated when you hear 8,700 miles a year, 40 push-ups, 35
Right.
pounds with each arm. It's
You think you
easy
just
to get
jump into it.
intimidated and
Hmm.
not be able to gain that insight of inspiration from what we're talking about. But we all started somewhere, and I started as a very self-conscious 10th or 11th grader that weighed 120, 130 pounds. I think by then I was 140 by my junior years, about 140, 5'11", 140, pretty thin.
That's thin.
And I couldn't move the 65-pound minimum or 45-pound minimum weight on the universal gym. I could not do a bench press of that amount. I remember having a flat tire and just struggling to get the tire out of my trunk to be able to change the flat. It was a big car, but still. I was, so proud when I could bench press the full sand weight bar of 110 or so pounds one time. So we all start somewhere.
We do. And it doesn't have to be an athlete type of mindset where you have to beat a weight or beat a mileage. It can really come down to, okay, what is healthy for my body? I know movement is every single day. So what am I capable of? I have, of course, people when I'm doing their weight loss or their health that have not done any formal types of exercise ever. And so when we start, it could be, okay, depending upon who you are, a push up off of the wall
Yeah,
because that's
exactly.
something. And then you gain from that one, you go to two, and you start building what it is that you need. So we all do start somewhere, but then the motivation behind it, of course, Robert, is you and I age and we have some limited types of things. Having that shift from I need to be an athlete to I just want to be healthy because. Why is that important for you, Garrett? Not Garrett. What's your grandson's name?
Emmett.
Emmett.
Similar.
Goodness,
Emmett.
Garrett's your son. Emmett.
Yeah.
So you want to be the cool grandpa that is able to run around with him and throw a ball with him as he
Right.
gets into sports and play a pickup game of basketball. And then as you get into your elderly years, for me, I see myself still going and doing what I do now into my 90s.
Yeah.
Like
That's
I
great.
really, truly do, because I want to have flexibility, hip, I want to be strong in my hips. I need to be strong in my core. I want to be able to take a lid off of the pickle jar. I want to be able to reach and pick things up in my house and care for myself rather than relying on somebody else or a walker or whatever else. So when I think of what am I doing every single day, what gets me there, I want to be strong, fit, and mobile.
Right.
That's what I want. Because if I do more than that, I'm going to break down. I don't want to break
Yeah,
down.
and
I
and
already
I do
broke.
too. And my big struggle is I lose motivation if I don't have a way to measure it, chart it out, and then set goals off of all of that.
Well,
That's the
maybe we
biggest
could have a
struggle.
little shift. And so you identify different things like with I want to be able to play these things and do things. Maybe your actual data is okay. It may be boring, air quotes right there,
Yeah,
to stretch, but what is the benefit of stretching? So for you, how tight are your hamstrings?
probably very tight. I don't certainly
Ridiculous.
can't touch my
Mm-hmm.
toes.
Okay.
Runners and
So
bikers typically are.
of course, but guess what? That's something that you can work on and you can measure.
And my son does this all the time. he does all kinds of these types of workouts because he says I want to be mobile when I'm in my
Yes.
80s, and he's only 32.
Yep. And that is a great mindset to have. So, like, specifically speaking to you, and maybe somebody else can really, grab onto this for you, you might not like the idea of yoga, but you don't have to do a yoga class to do yoga. You don't have to do all of that kind of stuff. What you could do is be like, okay, I am going to work on mobility of hamstrings for you, probably hamstrings, hips,
Yep.
IT bands, all of that lower body
Yep.
type of stuff. What are the things that I could do daily? I can do my push ups, but alongside of that, I'm going to hold this stretch for X amount of time. And I'm going to measure how far can I reach down on my legs. Now I can reach my calf. Now I can reach my ankle. My gosh, I'm touching my toes. I'm touching the floor. All measurable things that go alongside of your brain, all things that actually have a benefit for you, not only in your life, but then for your long term goal.
I'm smiling because it's just so outside of how I get motivated. It's like
Well, and
I'm
sometimes it
smiling because
doesn't
I'm ready to
matter,
laugh because it's like boring, not interesting,
but
not going to do it.
why
Already know
not?
I won't do it.
Why not?
Probably
Why are you so closed off to that?
it's just boring.
Well, what if we shifted our mind because it's not boring?
I'm working to shift, but I
Okay,
just
so we're going
haven't
to
I
talk
haven't
through that.
found the key yet.
We are going to talk about that because when you do find the benefit of something, sometimes it's the discipline, which you have amazing discipline, right?
I
Would you
think
agree
so.
that you have? Yes, you do. You have
Generally,
amazing
yeah.
discipline. Okay, I talked to a lot of people. You have amazing discipline.
Okay.
So
I'll take
you
it.
know that you're an incredibly disciplined person. When you set your mind to something and it's a goal, you achieve it.
Right.
The only thing holding you back is the mindset of that's boring. I'm going to smile
Yeah.
about because I know I'm not going to do it. Well, you're only ever going to do what you tell yourself you're going to do.
Right. Of course.
And so if you start shifting that and just say, I am going to stretch because I don't want to be bent over like this in my 80s. And if I don't start stretching those things out, I'm going to walk around like a cripple.
Yeah,
Did I
and
say
another
it?
thing that's been on my mind more, and I'm not quite sure why, is that I know there's an inherent risk to being out on the bike, being
Yep.
out with cars. And a big part of me says just go to a gym or buy a Peloton, which Peloton is that. I don't hold like the whole Peloton scene, but the concept of being able to do it in my home, I have the discipline on a cycle, and if I could measure it and so forth, I could probably do it. And you can do the same with your road bike. There's something called Zwift.
Yep.
So I could do all that and then not go on the road, but I get such a thrill out of going down the hill at 38 miles an hour and
Well,
doing
and
a
there's something to
course
be
and
said too.
breaking my personal record for that course, or going up a hill that's a segment on Strava and being able to
You're not
improve.
ready. You're not ready to bring it inside yet. But what
I
are
don't
the
think
things
so.
that you could do to really incorporate a different mindset behind what it is that you're doing? Because there will come a point where you're not able to go out on the road or go downhill at 38 miles an hour. And you're gonna make a shift in your mind being like, okay, so maybe I did get hit or
So
fall off or
I,
press myself too hard. Then what?
I'll leave this as an end point. It came to a fine point again. I did a ride on Saturday, and it was 26 miles, and I actually rode this little loop at the second fastest I've ever ridden it, which was pretty good because I haven't been riding that much. So it was pretty good. I was just over 19 miles an hour for an average for 26 miles, a little bit of climbing. Pretty pleased with the effort. Great result. Happy about it all. But there was a point where I was so focused on my power and my rotation of pedals, and there was some wind, so I had my head down. I was hugging the white line. The cars are on the one side of the line. I'm hugging the white line and keeping my head down. And next thing I know, there's a curb right in front of me. And I'm maybe going 16, 15 miles an hour, not so fast, but I was within inches and microseconds or split seconds of riding into the curb. Turns out the line I was riding on was actually a shoulder line that was a right turn thing, and it took it to the curb to go into this development.
Oh
I
my
was on the
gosh.
wrong line, and I was so damn focused on my power, my cadence, my am I rotating well? I'm not putting too much into each hip, and I keep my head down, that I wasn't looking up. year and a half ago, I had the same problem. I was trying to do a high power ride and had my head down and rode into the back of a Ford Expedition at 16 miles an hour. I mean, just slammed right into it.
Ow.
So the, this whole way of thinking is not doesn't always serve me well, because invariably every year to two I do something stupid. I go over a speed bump too fast that I don't see, and I get thrown off the bike at 28 miles an hour. Luckily, I came back from that without a broken bone. Um, Speed bumps and I have had limited
Had some
limited fun
speed
together.
bumps.
So
Speed
anyway,
bumps. Speed
I'll
bumps.
leave it at that, that I do realize all this, but I also return from that ride, and to your earlier point, I return from that ride and say, I am 62 plus now. I'm closer to 63 than 62, and I'm still over the 18 mile an hour per average. So I'm still above it. And when I start seeing it drop down is probably where I can't do that. That's probably where my mind would shift. But we'll see if I can do it sooner. If I can keep myself in one piece is really the key.
I think that is a very good life goal to have. My dog is barking. He apologizes. But most certainly, as you start to recognize that there are some limitations, and really honestly, Robert, think about like the whole stretching thing. It's not about being fun. Maybe we do some habit layering with it. Like, okay, so I do this for this amount of time. And while I do that, I listen to my favorite something
Yeah, I
or
like that idea because I do listen to a lot of podcasts, and given all the political news, which is something I focus on, there's quite a bit to listen to.
there's a lot to listen to. So you can have that as an immediate type of reward. So when you're starting to install a new habit and install something like that, make it immediately gratifying to you
So
because you can
there's a
stack
boom
it with
moment for
something.
everybody, right? You can find a
That's
way
right.
to you can find a way to do something that you might find a little bit boring or unmotivating, but incorporate it with something that you do enjoy. And your dog's saying, um, it's
He's
time
saying
for
it's
you to
time.
go human.
It's time.
It's time for you to
So
go dog at a higher level. Or
he's going to get louder now too. So anyway, this was fun. We will do this. Talk about
okay,
exercise again.
you're heading out. I hope you enjoy. I hope you have a productive trip out into what, Atlanta?
Yes, going to Hot
Okay.
Atlanta in a couple
Yeah.
days. So
Okay.
yeah, it'll be great. We'll talk about that after.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, my friend.
Thanks. Bye.